What I'm about to tell you will change how you see the people serving your coffee, clearing your table, bringing you water while you're living your life. Because this is the story of a man who had nothing, except everything that actually matters. And what happened when someone finally recognized it will break your heart and put it back together in the same moment. His name was Daniel Torres, 41 years old, waiter at Harborview Restaurant in Seattle. And every single morning at 4:30 a.m., his alarm would go off in a studio apartment so small you could touch both walls if you stretched your arms out. He'd wake up, make instant coffee in the dark so he wouldn't wake his daughter Sophia, 9 years old, asleep on the pull-out couch that served as her bed. He'd stand there in the kitchen that was really just a corner of the room, drinking that bitter coffee, watching the rain hit the window, and he'd tell himself the same thing he told himself every morning for the past 3 years. One more day. Just keep going, one more day. People walked past Daniel every single shift. Hundreds of them. Business people ordering the salmon, couples celebrating anniversaries, tourists wanting the clam chowder, and not one of them really saw him. Not really. They saw the uniform. They saw the man who brought the bread basket. They saw someone to snap their fingers at when they needed more water. But what nobody knew, what nobody could have known just by looking at him, was that Daniel Torres wasn't always a waiter struggling to make rent. He used to be a paramedic. He used to save lives. He used to have a house, a future, a wife who laughed at his terrible jokes. He used to be the kind of man who ran toward emergencies while everyone else ran away. And then his wife Maria got sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, the kind that shows up when it's already too late. And Daniel made a choice that revealed exactly who he was. He quit his job as a paramedic, the job he loved, the job that defined him, so he could take care of her. 24 hours a day for 8 months he was there, holding her hand, helping her to the bathroom, telling Sophia that mommy was going to be okay even though they both knew she wasn't. Maria died on a Tuesday morning in March. Sophia was 6. Daniel was 38, and he was broken in a way that most men don't come back from. The medical bills took the house, took the savings, took everything they'd built together. And when it was over, when he finally had to face the world again, Daniel discovered that being a paramedic requires certifications that expire when you take 8 months off, requires references from employers who don't understand why you abandoned your career, requires a version of yourself that can still function when your entire world has collapsed. So he became a waiter. Because restaurants will hire anyone who shows up on time. Because he had a daughter who needed to eat. Because sometimes survival doesn't look heroic. It looks like putting on a polyester uniform and smiling at strangers who don't even look you in the eye. But here's what I need you to understand about Daniel Torres. Character doesn't change just because circumstances do. He was still the same man who'd run toward emergencies. He was still the same father who'd sacrificed everything for the people he loved. He was still the same person who believed that how you treat people when nobody's watching is who you really are. Every shift, he'd help the elderly customers put on their coats. He'd remember which regulars liked extra lemon in their water. He'd slip the kitchen staff his own lunch when someone forgot to eat. He'd stay late to help the new servers count their tips. Small things, invisible things, the kind of things that don't show up on a resume or a bank statement. And every night, he'd go home to that tiny apartment, help Sophia with her homework at the kitchen table that was really just a desk they'd found on the sidewalk, make her laugh with the same terrible jokes her mother used to roll her eyes at, and tuck her into that pull-out couch. He'd tell her stories about her mom, about how brave Maria was, about how she made everyone around her better just by being herself. "Am I like Mommy?" Sophia would ask. "You're exactly like her," Daniel would say. "You have her courage. You have her heart." What he didn't say was that he saw Maria in everything Sophia did. Every smile, every laugh, every moment of kindness. His daughter was the living proof that Maria's goodness hadn't died, and that was the only thing that kept Daniel going some days. If you're watching from anywhere in the world right now, São Paulo, Manila, Houston, Mumbai, comment your city below. Because what I'm about to tell you next could happen anywhere. Grace doesn't have a zip code, it just has timing. It was a Thursday evening in October. The restaurant was busy, that chaotic kind of busy where you're moving on autopilot, where your feet hurt and your face hurts from smiling and you've forgotten what it feels like to not be tired. Daniel was working the main dining room. Table 12 needed more bread. Table 7 wanted to split the check 6 ways. Table 4's soup was cold, the usual. And then she walked in. Victoria Chen, 53 years old, CEO of Pacific Medical Solutions, one of the largest healthcare technology companies in the Northwest. The kind of woman who makes decisions that affect thousands of people before most people finish their first coffee. Elegant in that effortless way that comes from never having to think about money. Black suit that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent. Walking into Harborview like she owned it, which as it turned out she partially did. The hostess seated her at table 9, right in Daniel's section, and when he approached with water and menus ready to deliver his standard greeting, Victoria looked up at him, really looked at him, and her face went completely white. Her hand started trembling. The glass of wine she'd just picked up actually shook, red wine rippling like someone had touched the surface. She was staring at Daniel like she'd seen a ghost. "Ma'am," Daniel said, concerned now, slipping into that old paramedic instinct. "Are you all right? Do you need me to—" "You," she whispered. Her voice was breaking. "You're— oh my God." Daniel had no idea what was happening. Other diners were starting to notice. The woman was clearly in distress. But she wasn't having a medical emergency. She was looking at him with an expression he couldn't read. Horror? Recognition? Something else entirely? "I'm sorry," Daniel said carefully. "I think there's been some mistake. I don't—" Victoria's purse fell off her lap as she stood up too quickly. Her napkin dropped to the floor. She was reaching into her jacket pocket with shaking hands, pulling out her phone. She was crying now. Actually crying. In the middle of this crowded restaurant. "I need to show you something," she said. Her voice was raw with emotion. "Please, I need to show you something." This was not normal restaurant behavior. The manager was probably watching. Other servers were glancing over, but something in Victoria's face stopped Daniel from calling for help. There was pain there. Real pain. The kind he recognized from holding Maria's hand in hospice. The kind that comes from loss so deep it changes your face forever. Victoria pulled up a photo on her phone. Her hands were still shaking. She turned it toward Daniel. It was a picture of a man, early 50s, Asian, kind eyes, wearing a hospital gown, clearly sick, clearly dying, but smiling at the camera with that brave smile people wear when they know they're not going to make it, but don't want their loved ones to hurt more than they already do. And in his hand, pressed against his chest like a treasure, he was holding a photograph. Victoria zoomed in on the photograph in her dying husband's hand, and Daniel's entire world stopped. Because it was him. Not a photo of him now, but a photo from 3 years ago. Daniel in his paramedic uniform, younger, less broken, standing with his arm around Maria, both of them smiling at the camera. Sophia was between them, missing her front teeth, making a silly face. It was the photo that used to sit on his desk at the ambulance station. The photo he kept in his locker. The photo that disappeared one day, and he never knew what happened to it. "Your name is Daniel," Victoria said. It wasn't a question. "Daniel Torres. You were a paramedic. You worked for Seattle Emergency Services." Daniel couldn't speak. He was staring at this photo of a stranger holding his family picture like it mattered more than anything in the world. "That's my husband," Victoria said, tears streaming down her face now. "That's Robert. He died 8 months ago. Pancreatic cancer. The same thing that killed Maria. The same monster that destroyed everything. And the last thing he asked me to do, the last coherent thing he said before the morphine took him completely, was to find you. Find Daniel Torres. Find the paramedic who saved his life in ways that had nothing to do with medicine. But before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand something. Most people go through their entire lives never truly being seen. never having someone recognize the invisible good they do, never knowing if their character matters at all, or if they're just screaming kindness into a void. And Daniel Torres had no idea, absolutely no idea, that a moment of grace he'd given someone 3 years ago had meant anything to anyone. Victoria asked if they could talk somewhere private. The manager, seeing that this was clearly not a normal situation, told Daniel to take his break. They sat in a booth in the back, away from the dinner crowd. And Victoria told him a story. 3 years ago, Robert Chen was driving home from a business meeting. Successful venture capitalist, always in control, always composed. He had a heart attack at a stoplight, just collapsed over the steering wheel. Rush hour traffic, downtown Seattle, the kind of chaos where nobody helps because everyone assumes someone else will, except Daniel Torres, off duty, driving Sophia home from school. Saw the man slumped in the car, ran a red light to pull over, broke the window, started CPR right there in the middle of traffic, while Sophia watched from the car, terrified. Robert survived because of Daniel. The official ambulance didn't arrive for 12 more minutes. The doctors at Harborview, the same hospital whose restaurant Daniel now worked at, told Robert that if CPR had started even 3 minutes later, he'd be dead or brain damaged. But that's not the part Robert couldn't stop talking about. That's not why he kept Daniel's photo until the day he died. You stayed with him, Victoria said. Even after the ambulance came. Even after the paramedics took over, you stayed. Daniel barely remembered this. It was just what you did. You don't leave someone alone when they're scared. Robert was conscious by the time they loaded him, Victoria continued. And he asked you to call his wife because he was terrified and his phone was locked and he couldn't remember my number because fear makes you stupid. And you did. You called me. You told me exactly which hospital, exactly what happened. You stayed calm when I was losing my mind, and then you gave him your phone so he could hear my voice while they drove him to the ER. Daniel had done this dozens of times, hundreds. It was just part of the job. But then you did something that wasn't part of the job, Victoria said. Her voice was breaking again. You told him about your wife, about Maria, about how she was sick, about how you understood being afraid of losing the person you love most, about how you'd do anything to have one more day with her. And Daniel did remember that. Remembered sitting in the ambulance, holding this stranger's hand, talking about Maria because sometimes the only way to help someone through fear is to show them they're not alone in it. Robert said you cried, Victoria whispered. Said you held his hand and cried and told him that love was worth fighting for, that every moment with the person you love is a gift even when you know you're going to lose them. And that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about loving someone anyway. The paramedic who was supposed to save lives by restarting hearts had saved Robert's life by showing him his own heart, by being human when humans are supposed to be professional, by choosing connection over protocol. When Robert got home from the hospital that day, he tried to find you, Victoria said. He called Seattle Emergency Services. They said you'd taken a leave of absence, family emergency. We didn't know what happened to you, and then when Robert got diagnosed, when we found out that he had the same cancer your wife had, it felt like some kind of terrible cosmic connection. He kept saying he wished he could talk to you, wished he could ask how you survived losing her, how you kept going. Robert died never knowing that Daniel had lost Maria, never knowing that the man who'd given him courage to face his own mortality had walked through that same fire and come out the other side still trying to be good. He made me promise, Victoria said. Made me promise to find you, to tell you that what you said to him in that ambulance gave him peace, gave him the strength to face dying with grace instead of anger. He wanted you to know that your kindness mattered, that you saved him twice, once from his heart and once from his fear. Have you ever done something good that nobody noticed? Have you ever wondered if your character matters when the world doesn't seem to care? Comment below. Tell me about it, because I'm telling you right now, it matters. Even when you can't see it, even when you never find out, it matters. Daniel was crying now, actually crying in the back booth of the restaurant where he'd spent 3 years serving people who didn't see him. Because someone had seen him. Someone had remembered. Someone had held onto a moment of his goodness like it was worth keeping. "Where did you get the photo?" Daniel asked, his voice rough. "It fell out of your pocket," Victoria said. "In the ambulance. Robert found it on the floor after they took you to the hospital. And he said, he said it was like finding proof that angels exist. That the man who saved his life loved people the way everyone should love people. Completely, without holding back. Even when it costs you everything." Robert Chen had kept that photo for 3 years. Through chemotherapy, through radiation, through the horrible final months when pancreatic cancer takes everything from you except the ability to hurt. He'd kept it next to his hospital bed, held it when he couldn't sleep, looked at it when he needed to remember that love was real and good and worth the pain of losing it. "I've been looking for you for 8 months, Victoria said. "I hired a private investigator. They found out you lost Maria. Found out you'd left emergency services, but the trail went cold. I didn't know you were working here. I didn't know." She looked at Daniel's waiter uniform, at his tired eyes, at the version of him that life had beaten down to nothing. "You saved my husband's life," Victoria said. "And you gave him the courage to die well. And I need to know, what can I do for you? What do you need? Please, let me help." And this is the moment that defines character, because Daniel Torres could have asked for anything. Money, a job, help with rent, medical bills that were still crushing him 3 years later, anything. But he didn't. "I don't need anything," Daniel said. "I'm just glad I could help him. I'm glad what I said mattered." Victoria was shaking her head. "No, you don't understand. I need to do something. Robert made me promise, and I keep my promises to my husband." "Then keep loving him," Daniel said quietly. "Keep remembering him. Keep living the life he wanted you to have. That's what Maria would want me to tell you. That's what I try to tell myself every day when I don't want to get out of bed, that the people we love want us to keep living, want us to keep being good, want us to prove that their love changed us into better people." If you've ever lost someone who made you better, comment below. What city are you in? What's the thing they taught you that you're still trying to live up to? Because grief is universal, but so is the choice to honor the people we've lost by becoming who they believed we could be. Victoria was looking at Daniel like she was seeing something impossible, like she couldn't believe this broken man in a waiter's uniform was the same person who'd saved her husband twice. "I have a question," she said finally. "Do you miss being a paramedic?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Every single day, but my certification's expired, and I can't afford to redo the training while raising my daughter. So I do this, and I try to be good at it. And I try to remember that serving people food is still serving people." "What if you could go back?" Victoria asked. "I can't," Daniel said. "I've accepted that. I'm okay." "You're not okay," Victoria said gently. "Robert's photo of you, the one I found in his things, you look like a completely different person. You look alive. And I understand why you're not anymore. But I'm asking you, if you could go back to saving lives, would you?" "In a heartbeat," Daniel whispered. "But life doesn't work that way." "Sometimes it does," Victoria said. "When character attracts grace, when good men are finally recognized for who they are." And that's when she told him. Pacific Medical Solutions had a foundation that provided scholarships for healthcare workers who'd left the field due to family emergencies. A foundation that paid for recertification, retraining, even living expenses while people got back on their feet. A foundation that Robert had started after his heart attack specifically to help people like Daniel, the ones who sacrifice their careers to take care of the people they love. "He never knew your name," Victoria said. "But he started this foundation because of you. Because a paramedic showed him that love was worth more than any career, any success, any money. And he wanted to make sure that people like you, people who make that choice, aren't punished for it forever." Daniel couldn't breathe. "You're saying..." "I'm saying that the foundation covers everything," Victoria said. "Paramedic recertification, EMT training, living expenses while you study, childcare, everything, and you qualify. God, you qualify in ways that make me understand why Robert never stopped looking for you. Why me? Daniel asked. There must be hundreds of people who need this. Because you're the reason it exists, Victoria said simply. Because Robert died holding your picture. Because you gave him a gift you didn't even know you were giving. And because character attracts grace, Daniel. Even when you think no one's watching. Even when you think your goodness disappeared into the void. Someone was watching. Someone remembered. But the story doesn't end there. Because Victoria had one more thing to tell him. Robert left something for you, she said. In his will, he updated it 6 months before he died when he still thought he might find you. He left instructions that if you were ever located, you were to receive something. She pulled an envelope from her purse. Thick paper. Expensive. The kind of thing that matters. This is a letter, Victoria said. Robert wrote it when he could still hold a pen, when the cancer hadn't taken everything yet. He wanted you to know what you meant to him, what that moment in the ambulance gave him. Daniel's hands were shaking as he took the envelope. His name was written on the front in handwriting that got weaker as it went along. You could see where Robert's strength had given out, where he'd had to rest, where he'd pushed through anyway because some things are too important to leave unsaid. Read it when you're ready, Victoria said. But know this. You saved my husband's life. And then, you saved his death. You gave him the courage to face both with grace, and that matters more than you will ever know. What would you have done in that ambulance 3 years ago? Would you have stayed? Would you have shared your own pain to help a stranger face theirs? Would you have been professional, or would you have been human? Comment below. Tell me. Because the choice Daniel made without thinking changed everything. Daniel opened the letter right there. He couldn't wait. He needed to know. The handwriting was shaky, but clear, written by a man who knew he was dying but wasn't angry about it, just grateful. Dear Daniel, it began. I don't know if you'll ever read this. My wife is looking for you, but you seem to have disappeared. I hope that means you're somewhere good. Somewhere safe. Somewhere with your beautiful family. I'm dying. Same cancer that took your Maria. And I find myself thinking about what you told me that day in the ambulance. That love is worth fighting for even when you know you're going to lose. That courage isn't about not being scared. That every moment matters. You were crying when you said that, did you know that? You were holding my hand and crying, and I realized, this man isn't just saving my life. He's showing me how to live it, how to love my wife with everything I have left, how to be brave when bravery feels impossible. I have lived the last 3 years differently because of you. I have loved Victoria harder, appreciated every morning, said the things I needed to say, made my peace with dying because you showed me that death isn't the tragedy. Refusing to love fully while you're alive is the tragedy. I don't know what happened to you after that day, but I know you were facing something terrible with your wife. And I know that if you're reading this, you survived it. You're still here, still fighting. I need you to know something. The world needs men like you. Men who run toward emergencies. Men who cry with strangers. Men who sacrifice everything for love and somehow remain kind anyway. You are not invisible. You matter. Your goodness matters. I have set up a foundation to help people like you, people who gave up their careers to love someone through their dying. Because what you did for me shouldn't cost you everything. Love is the most important work any of us ever do, and it shouldn't come with a price tag that breaks you. If Victoria finds you, let her help. Let the foundation help. Not because you need charity, but because you deserve to save lives again. The world needs paramedics who understand that hearts aren't just organs. They're the thing we use to love people. And you understand that better than anyone. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you for crying with me. Thank you for showing me that it's okay to be afraid and brave at the same time. Your friend, Robert Chen. Daniel was sobbing. Actually sobbing in that back booth. This letter from a dead man he'd met for 30 minutes 3 years ago. This letter that said everything he'd needed to hear for so long. You're not invisible. You matter. Your goodness matters. Know a single dad who gave up everything to love someone? Know someone who's still fighting even though they're broken? Send me their story. Include their city. Because these stories need to be told. Because invisible heroes need to be seen. Victoria reached across the table and took Daniel's hand. The same way Daniel had held Robert's hand in that ambulance. The same way Grace recognizes goodness and refuses to let it die in darkness. Come work for the foundation, she said, not as charity, as staff. We need someone who understands what we're trying to do, someone who's lived it, someone who can look at applications and see the Robert Chens and the Daniel Torreses and know exactly what they need. I'm not qualified, Daniel said. You're the most qualified person alive, Victoria said. You've lived both sides. You saved a life. You lost a life. You sacrificed a career. You kept going anyway. Who better to decide who deserves help than someone who understands that sometimes the strongest people are the ones barely holding on? What about paramedic training? Daniel asked. What about going back? Do both, Victoria said. Work for us part-time. Get recertified. Let us cover everything. Let us prove to you that Robert was right, that your goodness didn't disappear into nothing, that it came back, that Grace recognizes good men eventually. It just takes time. Daniel looked at this woman, this CEO who'd walked into his restaurant section by accident or by fate or by something that neither of them could explain. And he understood something fundamental about the universe. Character attracts grace, not immediately, not obviously, not in ways you can predict or control. But if you keep being good when no one's watching, if you keep loving people even when it costs you everything, if you keep showing up and staying kind and doing the right thing even when the right thing breaks you, eventually, grace finds you. Not because you deserve it, not because you earned it, but because that's how the universe works. Good men attract good things. Not always. Not perfectly. But enough. Just enough to keep going. 3 months later, Daniel Torres walked into Seattle Emergency Services in a new uniform. Recertified paramedic. Foundation board member. Single father who'd survived the unsurvivable and come out the other side still believing in kindness. Sophia was with him. 10 years old now, wearing a visitor badge, watching her father get his life back. Dad, she said. Mom would be so proud. She'd be proud of you, Daniel said. You're the reason I kept going. You're the reason I stayed good. And that's the truth that no one tells you about being a single father. Your kids aren't just the reason you keep working. They're the reason you keep being the kind of person worth coming home to. They're watching everything, learning everything, becoming who you are when you think no one important is looking. Daniel's first call as a recertified paramedic was a car accident on I-5. Minor injuries. Scared driver. And while he was checking vitals, making sure everyone was okay, he held the driver's hand and said the same thing he'd said to Robert Chen 3 years earlier. You're going to be fine. I've got you. You're not alone. Small words. Invisible comfort. The kind of thing that doesn't show up in medical reports or insurance claims. But somewhere, someone would remember. Someone would hold on to that moment of grace like it mattered. Someone would carry it forward. Because that's how goodness works. It compounds. It multiplies. It attracts more of itself until one small act of kindness in an ambulance 3 years ago becomes a foundation that helps hundreds of families, becomes a letter that saves a broken man, becomes a story that reminds everyone watching that character matters more than circumstances. If you're a single dad watching this right now, from Toronto, from Lagos, from Mexico City, from Sydney, comment your city. Tell me you're out there, because you need to hear this. You may feel invisible. You may feel like your goodness is disappearing into a void. You may wonder if anyone will ever recognize the sacrifices you're making, the character you're maintaining, the love you're giving when you have nothing left to give. But someone is watching. Maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's a stranger whose life you changed without knowing it. Maybe it's Grace itself, waiting for the right moment to prove to you that good men don't stay invisible forever. Daniel Torres spent 3 years as a waiter. 3 years believing his best days were behind him. 3 years thinking that the universe didn't care about his character. He was wrong. Victoria Chen spent 8 months looking for him. 8 months honoring her husband's dying wish. 8 months proving that Grace doesn't forget good men. It's just slow sometimes. And Robert Chen spent 3 years holding a photograph of a family he'd never met. 3 years being grateful for 30 minutes in an ambulance with a paramedic who was brave enough to cry. 3 years building a foundation to make sure that men like Daniel don't have to choose between love and survival. 3 different people, 3 different stories, all connected by one moment of human goodness that nobody thought mattered. What's the most invisible sacrifice you've made for your family? The thing nobody noticed, nobody thanked you for, nobody will ever know you did? Comment below. Tell me. Because I'm here to tell you, it matters. Someone sees it. Even if it's just your kids 20 years from now, realizing what you gave up for them. Even if it's just Grace waiting for the right moment to give it back. This is what Single Dad Tales is about. Not rescue fantasies, not lottery wins, not magic solutions. Just the truth that character attracts grace, that good men are recognized eventually, that the invisible heroes we walk past every day, the waiters, the janitors, the delivery drivers, the overnight security guards, they're not invisible to everyone. Someone sees them. Someone remembers. Daniel sees it now. Every time he responds to a call. Every time he holds someone's hand. Every time he shows up at the foundation office and reads applications from people who sacrificed everything for love and just need someone to tell them they're not alone. He sees Robert's face in every scared patient, sees Maria's courage in every family facing the unsurvivable, sees Sophia's future in every kid watching their parent be brave. And he understands something that took him 3 years of being invisible to learn. Your circumstances don't define your character. Your choices do. The universe is slow, but it's not blind. And Grace recognizes good men. It always does. It just takes time. Have a turnaround story about a single dad who thought he was invisible until someone finally saw him? Send it to us. Include the city. Include what happened. Because the world needs these stories. Because someone watching right now needs to know they're not alone. Because grace is real, and it's looking for good men to recognize. If this story moved you, share it with a single dad who needs to hear it. Someone working 2 jobs, someone raising kids alone, someone who feels like their goodness is disappearing into nothing. Share it with them. Let them know they're seen. Subscribe to Single Dad Tales because I have more stories just like this one. Stories of invisible heroes. Stories of character attracting grace. Stories that prove good men don't stay invisible forever. And comment your city right now. Where are you watching from? Because this is a global community. Single dads in Sao Paulo, in Manila, in Detroit, in Cairo. All of you doing the same invisible work. All of you maintaining character when circumstances would justify giving up. You're not alone. And your story isn't over. Daniel Torres started with nothing, lost everything, spent 3 years invisible, and ended up exactly where he was supposed to be, saving lives again, honoring his wife's memory, raising his daughter to believe that character matters more than anything. He didn't have wealth. He didn't have power. He didn't have luck. He had something better. He had character. And character attracted grace. Not immediately, not obviously, not in ways anyone could have predicted. But it did. It always does. You just have to keep being good long enough for grace to find you, and it will find you. Character attracts grace. Your circumstances are temporary. Your goodness is permanent. And somewhere, someone is holding your photograph like it matters more than anything in the world. You just don't know it yet. Your story isn't over. Keep going. One more day. Grace is looking for you.